Andrea, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited about our conversation. Congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. Con pollo. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can kind of see it there.
Andrea has the book behind her and a cute little plush version of the pollo. So cute. I like to start my interviews by asking guests, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a good question. I think when I was like really little, I didn't have a concept of like grown-up jobs. I was not one of those kids growing up that had a clear, like, I want to be this. I knew what I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed drawing. I enjoyed my art classes. I enjoyed the creative subject, like English, reading, things that were more storytelling focused. But I think in the environment that I grew up in, being like a 90s kid and just like kind of being in school at that point, I rarely really saw like those career paths as viable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Even with teachers, it's like, oh, if you want to be successful, you should be a business person or a doctor or a lawyer, the more quote unquote traditional occupations. So I kind of just focused on that for a while.
Well, tell us, Andrea, for those who don't know what you do today, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Today, I am a creative entrepreneur. I am a illustrator and just creative storyteller. I love telling stories. I use my art as a way to do that. And I feel like I'm so new into this space and I'm kind of still figuring it out, like what I want my title to be. Some days I'm like, I'm an artist. Other days I'm like, wait, no, there's so much more that goes into being an artist than just the artwork. So maybe it is creative entrepreneur. It's a blend of all of those things. And I think an ever evolving definition.
I love that. Because I saw on your website as I was preparing for the interview that you started your account, Andrea's Doodles, as an outlet for you. So what was the path to get to where you are an artist, where you're a creative entrepreneur? Was it a straight path? I imagine it wasn't because it was an outlet for you. Like, tell us how you got to this work today.
Yeah. So my path into being a full-time creative was not a straightforward path at all. I had a whole career before I even started doing this. I was in advertising and marketing for almost 10 years.
Wow.
And right at the start of 2020, I had finally mustered up the courage to be like, you know what? Enough is enough. I know this isn't what makes me happy. I know in my heart of hearts, I meant to be doing something more, something creative. I just need to quit my job and give that a shot. And at the time, I was really focused on that being photography. It was what I had on nights and weekends. It's what everyone around me was like, you're so good at this, do this. And I genuinely felt like that was my path. So quit my job early 2020 and decided to focus on that, only to be met with the pandemic,
oh my goodness.
later.
Oh my God.
That was really hard. My timing could have been better, but I was just kind of left thinking like, well, oh no, what now? Because at the time, in-person events, productions, the things that you need to make photography were gone, and we didn't know when we were going to get them back. So I kind of just decided like, you know what? Let's take a pause. The world around you is kind of like on fire right now. Everyone's feeling really anxious about this COVID thing. You're feeling really stressed. Just take a moment to take care of yourself and get your head and your heart kind of back on track, because as you can imagine, mustering up the courage to quit only to be met with this like, giant wall of resistance, it does a number on your mental and emotional health. So I kind of took a few months just to recalibrate. And in doing so, I decided I'm going to just do things that make me feel good as a way to kind of distract from all of the chaos that was going on. So I developed an artist residency for myself at home, where I would just do a different creative thing every day to really kind of just fill the time and keep me feeling good, positive, and upbeat. Some days it was like silly things like, okay, let's bake this cake recipe. Other days I would go on walks and collect flowers, little leaves, and try to make something artful out of that. Things that I would have enjoyed doing as a kid. In doing that, illustration kind of came back into my life. Was something that I always loved doing as a kid. I would draw and draw for hours. But I think as I got older, I kind of put it on the back burner because it takes time and energy, and you can stay home and draw, or you can go out with your friends. You can stay home and draw, or you can go to that happy hour with your work colleagues. You know, there's always kind of a trade-off. But the pandemic was the first time where there was no trade-off, right? I had all the time in the world. So I started drawing every day just because it made me feel good. It brought me peace, and it really helped me process a lot of the stuff that was happening, especially in those early pandemic months.
Yeah, all the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So you were doing this, you were testing this out, you were experimenting with different things. And then what happened? How did you decide to start the Instagram?
Yeah, I think somewhere along the line, I was like, this is great that I'm filling my time with something positive, but I miss being around my friends. I miss talking to people. I miss having community. And at the time, I think so many of us sought that community online. I remember having virtual trivia with friends, becoming part of different chat groups, things like that. So I was like, oh, maybe I can just like build a community around this online. Like with my friends, I'll share my drawings and maybe they'll laugh at them, maybe they'll like them. I don't know. It was just a way for me to have a little bit more human connection because there's a couple of weeks, at least for me, were incredibly isolating. So I wanted to kind of just maintain that connection with folks best as I could.
So you started your Instagram and then you started sharing what you were doing on a daily basis.
Yeah. For those first few months, it was just drawing, and then sharing what I wanted to. And I think beautiful thing about it is that I was sharing what I wanted. I wasn't sharing things that I thought were masterpieces. I wasn't sharing things that I thought were like, oh my God, this is perfect. It was just like, oh, this was fun. Here you go. I had no expectations. And because of that, I think I took a lot of pressure off of myself and allowed myself to be vulnerable with my creative process because it was truly coming from a place of joy.
I love that. You were allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to be creative and to be free. Not thinking, I need to make these drawings in a way that they'll become profitable or that this will turn into a business. You were doing it for the joy of doing it.
Absolutely. I've said this to people before. I'm like, if I would have set out with the goal of being like, this is my new thing, this is a business, I need to hit the ground running, I wouldn't have been as successful. I think I would have gotten in my own way. And I think this is something that happens to a lot of creatives and a lot of entrepreneurs in general, where they think what they have to share or produce has to be perfect. They kind of block themselves in their mind or in their own way from actually bringing people along their journey, along their work, and kind of sharing the process, which for me, I have found really valuable with my art journey. So yeah, it was coming from a place of love and a place of joy, and people latched onto that.
Yeah. And then going through your website, your art is very happy. It's very beautiful. I felt joy looking at it. There's a good energy to it.
Thank you.
How did you go from posting those, connecting, and then you have books coming out in 2023, the Compollo. What was the first big moment or break where you thought maybe this could turn into something?
Yeah, it was a few months in. So fall of 2020, I got an email from someone at Athleta, which is a female-focused retail fitness store, being like, hey, I love your drawings. Can you do a couple postcards for a new store opening that we're doing? And I was elated. I was like,
oh my
what?
God.
Like my first commission? Oh my, okay, yeah. And immediately like jump on Google. I'm like, how much does one charge for this? I had no idea. And thankfully, I really hit that project out of the park, so much so that when I submitted the artwork and figured out like pricing, sizing, all of that, they reached back out and was like, hey, our marketing team saw these and they liked them so much that they want to blow them up into a giant window display.
Oh my God.
So excited. I was like, what? Are you joking? Like my little post, oh, okay, let's do it. So again, Googling like, well, how much does that cost? Like, I don't know.
Did you find that online? Was that a thing you could Google?
Yes and no. No, I did not find that exactly online, but I was able to find a couple of resources that exist for the digital arts and illustration community that are kind of like price guides. One of them is this book, and I have like an older version with me here today called the Pricing and Ethical Handbook for Graphic Arts. And anyone who is an aspiring illustrator, is a graphic designer, animator, things of that nature, this has so much information on like,
I'm going to link to it.
Yeah, what average rates are and everything. I highly recommend. This was kind of my Bible for the first few, because I figured out like, oh, this is a brand new space that I've never played in. I have no idea how this works. try to learn. So this book was a huge resource. Once that project evolved and turned into the window display, I was like, oh, well, maybe this is something I should try to do professionally. It kind of gave me that little bit of courage, that little nudge that, yeah, we all need that confidence to be like, wait, you can do this. And that was kind of when I started to see Drea's Doodles as a potential new business venture, a potential new way for me to still get what I wanted, right? Which was having a creative career. Maybe it wasn't the one that I was expecting. It was still going to be like equally as fun, equally as rewarding, equally as all the things that I had wanted.
So you do this thing, you're probably taking pictures outside of it, thinking this is like so cool. What did you start seeking out more work? Did more work find you? What were your next steps?
Yeah. So after I got this project, I immediately made a website. So I was like, all right, I need to look as legitimate as I possibly can, because there's a lot of really talented people online that have Instagrams with artwork, but are they doing it for fun? Are they doing it professionally? The line is kind of blurred. So I made a website, and that's when I started to actively pitch myself. And I'll be honest, for the next 3 months, I got nothing. Great. So I was like, okay, maybe
it was just a one-time thing.
Exactly. Like maybe it was a one-hit wonder, still a really cool experience. We'll see. And at that point too, it's early 2021. So I'm like, I need to get another job again. I've been unemployed essentially for a year because of the pandemic and everything else. I need to make sure that I can take care of myself. So I started just doubting the path in general. There was 2 things that kind of just kept me going. One was I drew something early in January 2020 that went super viral.
Oh, wow.
And it was something that was really important to me around MLK Jr. Day. I drew this little piece of artwork that said, don't just share my quotes, live my words. And coming out of 2020, when I think the US as a whole was having a racial awakening where people who maybe had not realized like how bad things still were, I felt really poignant because people were just going to be sharing quotes willy-nilly without having maybe their actions match that. And that just didn't really sit well with me. And I drew something, again, trying to be really positive, a cartoon version of him with the little sign that said that, and it just exploded.
Wow.
And that was like another point where I'm like, okay, I'm realizing that I have this ability to talk about serious issues in a way that is really warm and positive and can bring people in to a conversation versus just shutting them out of it. That's when I started to get feedback like that. And that also kind of helped keep me going.
And so that was in January 2021. Okay. So it was this sign, keep going, Andrea.
Yeah. Because at that point, the Athleta project happened September 2020. I pitched myself in October. I pitched myself in November, December, January, nothing. And that was like, all right, I should just give it a little bit more of a go. And I kept pitching myself in February and nothing. And then in March, I got an email that changed everything. So
what was that email?
That was an email from the folks over at Macmillan Publishing asking me if I'd be interested in illustrating a celebrity picture book. I was so excited when I got this email that I thought it was spam. Or
you were like, is this a joke?
I honestly thought it was fake because, again, I'm so new to this world still that I'm like, Macmillan, who? Well, I need to just make sure that this is legit because
of course.
There's all sorts of like scams out there.
Yeah.
I Googled them like, okay, they're a very real company working on very cool projects. Wow, I'm so excited that they know who I am. So I respond to them and I'm like, I'm very interested in learning more about this project.
How did they find you? Was it through your Instagram?
They found me through my Instagram. Yeah, so once I got connected with them, they were able to share that we actually found your artwork via Instagram and we think that you'd be the perfect fit aesthetically for the project that we're doing. And that's when they shared with me that the project was a picture book written by Jennifer Lopez and Jimmy Fallon. And
did you die?
I did. I remember I was just like kind of stunned for probably a solid minute, just reading the email over and over again because they said it very casually, like matter-of-factly, and I'm like, what? And then after that, I had this little moment of doubt where I'm like, wait, can you do this? How to do this?
Am I good enough?
Yes. Yeah. It's embarrassing to kind of admit it now, but it was excitement followed by doubt. And part of it was, that fear of, am I good enough? Am I going to embarrass myself on a national, global scale. But thankfully, the third thought was like, you're going to try. You're going to try. You're going to do your best. And hopefully this works out, you know?
Yeah. Just go for it.
Yeah. I told myself I was going to go for it because in that like initial interaction, they shared that I wasn't the only artist they were talking to. There were other people in the mix. So part of me was like, all right, don't get your hopes up too much. And the other part of me was like, you are going to do everything you possibly can. You're the cutest little chicken ever. You're going to beat yourself up if this does not happen. And I probably would have, where I'm like, oh, I had this great opportunity and I messed it up. But thankfully, that didn't happen.
So I'm glad you shared that because I think there's a lot of people who are wanting to pursue something they love and they feel that doubt. And then they might take that doubt as a sign that maybe I'm not supposed to do this, but to keep going. Did you have to submit little chickens?
I had to submit what I thought the main character would look like. And there were a few rounds of this. Yeah. All in all, I drew like over 100 chickens. I didn't send them all the chickens, but like, like, okay, what if it looked like this? What if its head was rounder? What if its body was like tiny? What if it had little skinny legs? What if it had like chubby legs? It was a really kind of fun exercise for me in character development. Thankfully, a few months later, I got a call and they were like, hey, we've decided to move forward with you. And I just started bawling. I just started bawling because I was so happy. I truly enjoyed the character development process so much. And I didn't even know that I had that skill set in me that it like sparks in the room. Like, you are loving doing this in a way that you haven't loved your work previously. Getting to create a world, and not just that, but like a world that's going to live inside like a kid's imagination at their bedtime. It all felt really special. And I think I just kind of used that energy and produced the little cute that you now see in Con Pollo.
That is so cool. And you had to wait for months to find out.
Oh, it was the most stressful.
Oh my God.
3 months. I kept just like emailing, being like, any news? I feel like I probably lost like 3 years of my life. The anxiety of those months. Thankfully, it all worked out in the end.
So when you found out, did you get to meet Jimmy, or what was that all like? I'm sure that was a big moment.
Yeah, it was a huge moment, especially because like my parents started joking around with me, being like, oh, your coworkers, Jimmy Fallon and Jennifer Lopez. Sounds like insane. And they were obviously doing it to joke, but I'm like, wait, we kind of are coworkers on the project. This is wild to me. After that, I didn't get to meet them right away because it was 2021, like Omicron variant. COVID was very much a real thing. From there, I started working with the folks over at Macmillan who were wonderful and amazing. And they shared with me the story that they had kind of co-written. And I got to see a sneak peek and be like, wow, this is so fun. This is so cute. And then it kind of worked as it traditionally does within the publishing space, where the author will share notes with the art director and the art director will talk directly with the illustrator.
Gotcha.
And that actually happens for a variety of reasons. One being that they want to keep the two worlds separate so that the illustrator isn't just like making change after change because the author is changing their mind. And also because the publishing house is really invested in the quality of the product too, and they have a vision. So I kind of just worked primarily directly with the art director for the first like few months of just rolling out the book. But I did finally get a chance to meet Jimmy at the launch of the book, or when the book launched in October.
And what was that like?
The one thing I was not expecting was him to have like the same amount of energy and excitement and positivity off screen as he did on screen. He walked into the room and was this ball of energy. I was like, whoa. I'm the type of person that will match someone's energy where they're at.
Yeah.
And the first 7 minutes of us meeting one another, I think was just like happy joy for him, and happy joy for me. We like awkwardly did a chicken dance. It was all exciting. I was like so excited, but also nervous. I'm like, oh my God, you are someone who is so well established in their career, so creative, a creative entrepreneur in their own right. Like I'm so everything he's done, not only like in the children's book space, but on TV. He also makes products. It's insane, everything that he's been able to do. And I really admire that. He was absolutely wonderful. Immediately after meeting, jumped into an interview, and he was clearly doing everything to make sure like I felt calm and confident in this setting, because that was my first time doing anything like that. So yeah, He was a wonderful creative collaborator through it all.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear
Yeah.
because his energy is infectious on TV. And recently listened to his interview on How I Built This, I think. And he just talks about how he considers himself a creative entrepreneur because he does so many things, which I didn't realize, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
I think after I officially got the project, I listened to that same podcast and I was also pleasantly surprised because I thought, oh, he did Saturday Night Live and now he does the Tonight Show. So to like really see that he's the type of creative person that is like so involved in everything they do and sparking ideas left and right. I personally feel like I'm similar energy wise. I'm like, oh, I don't want to just do one thing. I like doing one thing. And they all kind of inspire and feed one another. That just felt really good. And of course, meeting him and realizing like, oh, you are such a genuinely happy person also helped. And I think that's where like a lot of the con pollo, like playfulness, obviously.
Yeah. How was that moment for you, Andrea, to have started something during the pandemic as a fun experiment project, to then be meeting Jimmy Fallon and be the illustrator for a book he's publishing? That must have been such a surreal moment. Or how was that for you?
Yeah, looking back at the last couple months, at times it feels like I've stepped into someone else's life because I didn't have these expectations for myself even just a few years ago. I didn't share this before, but the job that I had before I quit in 2020 was a really unhealthy job. I had a manager who was not very supportive, an environment where racism and prejudice interactions just happened all the time. And I was one of the only people of color on that team. So when I left there, I felt like I was about 2 inches tall. Energy wise, really defeated. My confidence was a little bit beaten and bruised. And I had kind of started to question my self-worth. And I think the beautiful thing that happened throughout the pandemic is that through the artwork, through my illustration, through everything else that I was able to do, I was able to find my sense of self again. I was able to find my voice again and use it for the first time in a long time because a lot of the jobs that I had before in marketing, I was adopting the voice of a brand or a product or a character. So now to be able to explore what that means for me, what do I actually want to say out there? Who do I want to be? What do I want to stand for? Was really special. And with everything that happened around the launch of Bon Pollo, getting to go to New York, meeting Jimmy, being on the Tonight Show, it felt like this culmination and this giant blessing or sign from the universe where it's like, hey, you have this in you. You just have to dream bigger. Like you are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. And I think a lot of us fall in that trap where we're able to see potential in other people and root other people on. But when it comes to ourselves, we're our toughest critics. We'll pick and tear everything that we do apart when in actuality, we are equally as talented and capable as those other people that we are praising and celebrating. And for me, this whole journey has been kind of a realignment with that, where I feel like I'm finally doing what I'm meant to be doing. And I think that shows not only in the joy that comes across in my work, but the impact that I have been able to make over the past few years.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for sharing what the previous work was like. I think that a lot of people listening could connect at some level with that. Also, too, I'm reading a book and it's talking about being true to ourselves and who we really are. And it sounds like you were able to start loving yourself more, what you brought, your talents, your skills through this experiment that you started. Art, creating things that you loved, that you enjoyed. You started being true to yourself. And in that, you found success.
Yeah, I think there's something really beautiful that happens when we're able to, like you said, be true to ourselves or reconnect with our inner child, just be honest with who we want to be. And I think that's really tough to do, especially for adults who maybe have been doing one thing for a really long time and then realizing, oh, I'm actually not happy in this. Then you start to get pragmatic and you're like, oh, but I already spent so much time, energy, and effort developing this.
I can't quit now.
Yeah, don't quit now. Maybe I just need to like change this little thing when deep down, you know that that's not it. I struggled with that for years. I get why people don't make those changes right away. There's financial implications. There's the whole pride of it all where like, no, I went to school for this. I'm not going to let that go. I don't want to disappoint my family, my partner, my kids, whatever your circumstance might be. And that's really hard.
It takes a lot of courage and vulnerability.
Absolutely.
What would you say to someone who's listening who feels that tug at their heart and thinks, I don't know if I can leave my job, or I don't know if I can quit like Andrea could? What would you say to that person? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah. I think the whole leaving your job thing is certainly not for everyone. And I get that.
Yeah.
Like, we all have different responsibilities
Yeah.
and different people that count on us.
Yeah.
But in your heart of hearts, you're being called to do something, whether that's something creative or whether it's a new business idea or something to that nature. I would say to go after that in a way that makes sense for you.
Mm.
So is it something that you can do on nights and weekends? Does it become a side hustle? For me, with the photography work, I was doing that for 5 years before I ripped the Band-Aid and quit my job in 2020.
Wow.
Because I knew that I needed to build a client book, to understand how the industry worked, to build for myself, because it is really competitive. I'm the type of person that likes to be a little bit more cautious, not really like a rip the Band-Aid off and fly and see kind of what happens, especially when it comes to just financial responsibility and stability and all that good stuff. I'm first generation. I don't have a huge generational wealth to lean back on. That doesn't exist for me. So all the work that I was doing before was to give myself the opportunity to do this now. And I think for people who maybe are still kind of stuck in a job that they don't love or in a situation they don't love, start finding that joy for yourself in other places. And what can happen is that will grow and grow and then potentially give you the opportunity to walk away. Or you might actually feel satisfied just by doing it on the side. And that can be a beautiful thing too. I don't think there's like a one size fits all for creative entrepreneurship. I think we're all able to kind of find that for ourselves in a multitude of ways. So I want to encourage people to figure out what makes the most sense for them.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And experimenting like you did.
Yeah.
Figuring out what it is. Because for a lot of people, they know what they don't want to do, but they don't know what it is that they're really looking for either.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think just giving ourselves the time to play, like you said, experiment play. I think that's something we do such a great job of doing as kids. And we encourage kids to do that, right? Because we know that it can unlock their imagination or inspire them to do something differently. Well, then why don't we encourage ourselves to do that?
Yes.
Like, I think a lot of folks who would benefit tremendously from just taking a Tuesday afternoon off and just playing, doing something purely for fun without expectation. For me, I really credit that as to why I was able to be successful with the start of this new career for myself, because for those first few months, that's what I was doing. I was experimenting. I was like, oh, this is fun. I like this. Oh, wow, I really don't like that. That was too much work. And it brought me to illustration, which was something that I always enjoyed doing, but didn't realize that I could do for a job.
As a coach, I always tell clients to follow what they're enthusiastic about, what they're excited about, what they're curious about. And it sounds like that's what you were doing.
Yeah, that's 100% what it was. I was kind of just following my joy and just being like, this is fun. I'm going to just see where this leads me. And it's been the adventure of a lifetime and the confidence to kind of just keep experimenting, keep finding my joy. Now I hope to, at some point, write and illustrate my own picture book, which had always been in the back of my mind. And I always knew I was going to do, but not at this scale. I thought I was like, oh, I'll write it and I'll draw it and I'll give it to my kid one day. It was like the narrative.
Yeah. Which is also beautiful.
I was happy with that. But now I'm like, wait, I can draw it and write it and I can give it to like millions of kids. This is insane. So
that's amazing. I saw that there's a book coming out in 2023. What else is coming? What's next for you?
I have a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. I'm still kind of getting used to the fact that in the creative space, projects kind of come and go. It's very spotty. It's not consistent in the same way that a more traditional job could be. But for me, I have another book that comes out in the spring next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. A little sneak peek of it behind.
I see it.
To let everyone know, it's going to be a first words book that is bilingual in both English and Spanish. The drawings are super cute. I really was inspired to do this because I was buying gifts for some of my friends' babies, and I realized that a lot of the first words books that are out there are just photos or stock images of things like bunnies and babies and balls. And I was kind of visually disappointed with that. I'm like, wait, this should be more fun. this poor stock photo has probably been the same one that I saw when I was a kid, like, plus years ago. The kids like something more exciting and new. So I'm really excited about that, especially it being bilingual. I grew up bilingual. Spanish was my first language. So I really want to encourage young kids, especially in the US, to learn more than one language. Yeah. It is such a valuable skill to have. It allows you to make so many more friends. And it's something that I think other countries do like a way better job of. I'm hoping that by creating something that is really fun and playful, kids see it as fun versus school or work.
Yeah. And how did that project come about? Is it through the same publishing house? Is it something you pitched?
This was actually something I pitched where I'm like, hey, I've noticed that, like I said, a lot of the first words books out there are just stock images. And then the other thing that I've noticed is that there is one man that really has a monopoly on all
interesting.
The first words books and all the bilingual and multilingual first
interesting.
Words. And he has no affiliation whatsoever to those other languages and cultures.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted to change that. And I'm one small person, and this person has been around a lot longer and really does have like a strong hold on those books. So I'm hoping to kind of just change that and have something that is out there that's really by the community for the community. I think what excites me the most about the first words, Primeras Palabras book, is that I don't see this as being a book for Spanish speakers who want to learn English or a book for English speakers who want to learn Spanish. It truly is for both. And I've designed pronunciation guides for all the English words and the Spanish words. So that no matter what direction you're coming from language-wise, you can learn how to say it well. You can learn with your kids. It's going to be like really interactive.
Tell me, you're first generation Latina. Your parents immigrated from where?
San Luis Potosí, Mexico.
Ah, that's where my family's from.
Oh my God, we should have started with that.
No way. Where in San Luis? Is it the main city?
The main city. What about you?
We're a little pueblito called Moctezuma, which is about an hour away from the city.
Okay. My grandpa was originally from Arriaga, which is like another small city.
Arriaga. I'll ask my mom about it.
It's like a little tiny farming town.
Okay. Yeah, that's how ours is. Like Ahualulco, Moctezuma.
In my mind, it's like Arriaga. Like there's just a little square. It's kind of small. So.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Actually headed there in 2.5 weeks for Christmas.
Oh, that's awesome. So you still go back?
Yeah, my parents moved to the US in late 80s, but the rest of our family is still all there. So,
wow.
And so my parents live in Chicago. I'm in Los Angeles. We are kind of just distethered from the rest of the family. So that's why we go back as often as we can, because my mom is one of 13. She has like a massive family, and my dad has a bunch of cousins and stuff too. So we like to go back a lot.
So growing up, did you go back often? I mean, the last time I went, I think I was like 12. My parents go, but I don't feel as connected as I think we could have been. And I think a lot of people who go back every summer, they feel this connection. And
yeah, I think my parents were really intentional with how they raised my brother and I, and they wanted to make sure that we still felt connected to San Luis, our family, Mexico, and Mexican culture in general, even though we were growing up in Chicago in the US, and they made sure that Spanish was our first language. I didn't really learn English until I was like in kindergarten.
Me too. Me too.
You absorb, like, I don't remember it being like super hard to learn both. I was like, oh, cool. I thought we all did that. No? Okay. A while to realize that it's something different, right? They made sure that we went back at least once a year, if not twice a year. And my dad worked so hard to make sure that happened. And sometimes in the summers, we would spend like 2 months in San Luis, just because my mom has such a big family. I think it was really nice to have a built-in community. I had like 40 cousins. And when you're little, you're like, this is
fun.
Yeah, this is amazing. I think now when I go back as an adult, I feel more of that disconnect because I start to romanticize what would my life have been if I lived here. My parents just would have made one different choice. Like, who would I be in this city? Who would my friends have been? What would my career path have been? I kind of think about that a lot.
I think about that often too. Yeah. I was born in the US in Dallas, but if I'd been born in Mexico the year before, what would my life have been like? Or what if they hadn't come to the US in the 80s? I think about that a lot too, or how
Yeah.
different our lives are, even though we're first cousins.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm glad I asked.
Connection. Yeah. When I saw your face, I was like, does she know San Luis? Because like no one ever knows San
Yeah.
Luis.
I really want to go and learn more about San Luis. My husband's family is from Mexico City, and one of his aunts brought me wine from San Luis Potosí. And I was like, that's so cool.
If you ever get a chance to go back, we finally visited La Huasteca a couple years ago, half desert, half jungle. It's really kind of interesting.
Interesting.
And La Huasteca is this like beautiful part of San Luis where there's all these natural waterfalls, mineral rivers. It honestly looks like you're somewhere in Southeast Asia, but nope,
Wow.
it's San Luis, Mexico.
So your parents must be so proud of you.
They are so, so excited and so happy. And I think pleasantly surprised that I've been able to carve this
Mm.
path out for myself. I've talked about this a little bit before, but when I was in high school, I told my dad that I wanted to pursue like a more creative career. And at the time, I was really obsessed with all of those like home renovation shows that were so popular in the early
Hmm.
2000s. And I wanted to be an interior designer. I loved how they changed spaces, brought all this like beautiful energy into people's homes. And I told my dad, I'm like, that's what I want to study in school. And he very politely was like, that's great, but I would prefer that you study something that'll help you get a real job. At that moment, he realized how much weight real job,
Mm.
the pressure that I
Mm.
started to feel as a result of that. Because I think that was
Mm.
not one of the first, but definitely more defining, where it's like creative jobs here,
Mm.
business, doctor, lawyer, here. That line was drawn for me. So now, many moons later, to be able to show them that, hey, you can have a creative job and it can actually be something that sustains you. And granted, I'm only 2 years into this, so
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe things will change, but I don't feel that. I feel like this is going to be the path that I'm on for the rest of my life because I love it and I
Mm.
enjoy doing it. So far, it's been able to allow me to live a life that I feel comfortable and insecure in.
That's beautiful. Congratulations, Andrea. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about your work? Where can people purchase the book?
Yeah, so you can find me online. I'm at Drea's Doodles on everything on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I also have a website, dreasdoodles.com. You can see some of my previous work there and also my shop that currently includes some of my books and little Boyo stuffed animal, which are,
Oh,
and with Con Pollo, you can honestly find Con Pollo almost everywhere. It's at small indie bookstores, it's at places like Target and Walmart, and also you can find it online on retailers like Amazon.
oh, congratulations. I'm excited. I'm planning on giving that little plushed little chicken behind you to my daughter.
I'm hoping she loves it.
And
They're very cute and very
they
soft.
are very cute. And my parents are going to be so excited when I share that you illustrated and that your family's from San Luis. They're going to be so excited. Thank you so much.